Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Into the Veil. I'm Rachel, and as always, it's great to have you here. So, lots going on this last number of weeks, guys. So much so that I actually took notes because a lot of downloads were coming in at various times, and I had to kind of center into the different stages of all of this, and I'm just smudging while I'm talking to hopefully give me a better sense of direction in how this is presented. So I do have asked Anku if he would like to offer his assistance, but I have also intentionally asked Spirit, angels, guides, any assistance that we can have in providing some clarity to a lot of what we've all been going through at various levels. I'm going to move this out of the way so it's not in my face. Okay. So, something that came to me, and we have a lot to discuss. I don't know yet if I'll break this into 2 parts or one longer session. We'll see how the flow goes and what seems to be the direction. The first thing I was kind of picking up on is that man has really been confined to understanding time as perhaps one of our greatest illusions. We were given day and night. We were given time to help us in the construct of the 3D. But it's sort of an evolution of understanding that time is more cyclical than linear, and that it can be expansive and huge to us, as well as rather small and infinite. I think the way that time breaks down for us as people is very symbolic of that, because we break it into seconds and milliseconds, but we also have this whole concept of past, present, and future in our minds also. And I think it's an opportunity that we have been given to see that time is really more cyclical than linear. The other thing that has been very present has been a lot of, I call it fire energy. It can be as comfortable as a campfire, or it can be as scorching and blazing as a fire in the forestry that seems out of control. But it's very purifying in the regards that it has the potential of bubbling up or bringing our own, I guess you could say, impurities up to the surface. When you think of lead, and how if you put that over fire over a period of time, those impurities rise to the top, and we have the ability to scrape those off. Given more time on the fire, and it usually takes a while, the deepest of those impurities also will rise to the top. So, okay, from here, let's talk about the energy that presented itself at that new moon and shortly after. Was very much about acknowledgement, about forgiveness, being able to focus on a negative and find strength in it. And it was also a real, I guess you could call it a dividing of energy, where in the way that Anku had shown it to me, there was a huge ravine. And as I looked at it, it looked very proportional to what I thought was my size. And I saw the people on the right side, and I saw what looked very dark, and I would have associated it with some of the experiences people have had with this very canine or dogman type energy. The eyes were very red. I do not believe that all canine energy is negative by any measure, but these were distinct. These were clearly not on our side. And as I viewed this ravine or valley or whatever this was between them, I saw what looked like a person scrambling up the side of the big guys. And it was steep enough that this person could not get there. It was almost physically impossible in what I saw. But simultaneously, I saw one reach their hand down, pick him up, and put him behind them. And I feel that it was very representative of what we would consider forces of good, forces of evil. We tend to kind of compartmentalize this way. And all of us, Anku says, certainly have adversaries. And they have fought these energies for eons. And they have protected man for eons. There are certain things that cannot be avoided, but they can help to buffer some of those things that would affect us. And I often feel that that's through the Creator's grace that we get the least effect out of something that has been preordained or allowed to reach our space. You know, a lot of times we forget that everything in the universe has to have the Creator's permission in order to not only exist, but to affect those that are His children. And sometimes it's a test. Sometimes it's allowed to be used to help forge, to help strengthen or steel. And these energies, Ankush showed them as being very, he called them Jinn. They're ancient. They've existed since before man. In and by themselves, they do not hold form. They do not hold shape, definition. And I see that they reside very much sometimes in the realm of chaos, where everything is just very mutable. So with that, what I understood him to be sharing was that in our origins, these energies have always existed, and inasmuch as when man was created, and the Creator said to the angels, to these energies that existed, that they were to bow down to man, to be of service to man. The third that we perceivably understand as fallen, and said, I'm not going to do that. Paraphrase version, by the way. And said, these people aren't worthy. And I got this overwhelming sense that the Creator said, you know what, you've got a certain amount of time to prove that they are not worthy. And then that's it. So much of what these same energies have portrayed themselves as are often serpentine, canine. Draw your own conclusions on that. But that they also maneuver our thoughts, maneuver our emotions. I feel like on an energetic level, they know more about us than we do, spiritually. Whether that's our soulful history, whether that's our current history. And I feel that many of us have been fighting these same energies since the beginning. Ancestrally speaking, since the beginning. And that it is part of our task to help prove man's worthiness. It's part of our task to find peace in knowing that these things have no power on their own, only with what permission they're given, either by our words, our actions, or that of the Creator. And I think that the other thing to realize is that most of these energies, they're very slippery. They reside in darker crevices. Often they'll never be seen in the daytime. So the only part of ourselves that they hold any idea of authority over are the darkest parts that we are hesitant to shine light into. The parts that we want to forget, the parts that we don't want to revisit that and go through the process of healing it. And those are the places that are accentuated. Oftentimes they're the types of events that will recycle and keep showing up in our lives as an opportunity to shine light on it, to heal it, to make peace with it. So the 23rd of May felt really strong in that it's what I saw was this 5D energy just laying on top of us. And even though we've had access as individuals to that higher part of who we are, it just kind of felt like it was more of a dimensional shift, in that that energy got much, much closer. And the 4D felt very sandwiched in that. For me personally, I experienced real blurs of dimensional lines. Normally, in the work that I do, I can easily see what's past, what's now, what might be close around the corner. But this felt very blurred. And I was having a lot of trouble grounding in the 3D, a lot of trouble focusing on the 3D, and being able to define what that was. But as the lunar eclipse came in, and all of that energy was very present, Anku gave me the word firewall. And it gave me the sense, we could use that in a couple of different ways. One feels like it could be related, say, to computers. We understand a firewall to be security as to what has access to our computer and what doesn't, what's given permission and what's not. But even in the forestry, they might use a ditch or create a firewall so that if a fire is burning out of control, there's something there to create some safety for maybe some houses or areas that they need to draw that line and know that that safety is there. So with that, Ankuba's trying to explain that in our purification, in those, call them negative energies, being present, that it was an opportunity to purify those parts of who we were. And it was taking our pain, our sorrow, certain beliefs about ourselves, and being able to transmute it through that flame, through that difficulty, and allow it to become something else, a different expression, because it felt like it was stagnant, like it had been there a long time. And for me, I get this on a personal level, but I also sometimes find myself processing through a collective level of what might need my assistance energetically. And the warning or the feeling that I got in that was for individuals that were able to process this in a healthy way, that it would be extremely cleansing, extremely healing, and offer room for the seeds below the dirt to grow, to sprout, almost immediately. But for those that tried to cling to ego or tried to cling to their story, he says their story, that it could also create some sense of backfire. And that might show as anger, or that might show as fear. He says grief. And it's important, if you're still going through this, not to really act or try to react until you understand what's in your space energetically and what it might be trying to show you. But it's a gift in and by itself, because it allows us to see these parts of our fragmented selves, the parts of us that at different points in time that might have been very difficult, that maybe we've lost, air quote. You know, on a shamanic level, it's a lot like soul retrieval, where we can gather these fragments that we've allowed to run off and hide through difficulty, to kind of come back in and create a better sense of wholeness within us. Most of these fragmented parts are because of fear, or because we have a great fear of judgment. But it feels like it's very much trying to bring us back into our raw state, our original state of being. And the only way to do that is to clean out the closet and get rid of that stuff. And the only way that we're going to be aware of it is if it presents itself. So it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to take all those puzzle pieces and put them together, but you can. And I think that in that, it's also realizing that there have been times in our lives where we maybe have compromised portions of ourselves for the sake of, or the name of, call it love, only to find out that maybe people aren't always what we think they are. Or maybe we sold out something that we firmly believed in out of fear of losing someone, or out of fear of not being accepted. And it's seldom, if ever, intentional. It's seldom an intentional thought of, I'm going to sell out now. It's sneakier than that. So we hold it over our own head. We say, man, what I gave up for X, Y, and Z. And just points of thought here. But sometimes even the idea of those higher vibrational things, truth, love, light, can be illusory. And our ability to feel the truth in it, to be able to see beyond what's on the surface, is really pretty necessary at this stage in the game in order to continue to ascend and evolve out of where we have been as a species, as individuals. Some of this has brought a great sense of sadness to many of you, a heaviness. And I think what it is that it's realizing how disconnected we've become from our own origins, from the Creator, or from all that's good. And a great part of what's trying to process out is that sense of separateness, and realizing that every day we're given an opportunity to rejoin oneness. We're given an opportunity to begin to view the world as being connected to us. And not just the world, but divinity itself. And it really gets into really arcane energies, in that it reflects our lack of feeling self-worth. Some of this is even ancestral, in that, Adam and Eve had a really tough time when they came out of the garden, so to speak, and they had to rough it. And if they had just taken the minute to ask those energies that steadily walked beside them about the action they were going to take, even though they'd been given direction not to do what they'd done, if they'd taken a minute to ask, maybe things would have been much different. So I think there's a lot of genetic guilt within us for knowing there were certain things we could have avoided in our experience as a species, as man. And part of that that's trying to heal now, truly, is in bridging that lack of self-worth, that lack of judgment on ourselves. So as the lunar eclipse came in, I was reminded of an experience that I had when I was very young, somewhere between 2 and 3 years old. And I remembered that one night I had waken up. I don't know what woke me up. I don't know if I heard something. I don't know why this night. But I woke up, and in front of me there were 2 closet doors that were popular back in the 60s and 70s. Those sliding doors, just plain. Very much looked like part of the wall. And I saw these shadows everywhere. And my instinct was to scream out to my dad. And I did. At the top of my lungs. Which apparently I must have had more volume then than I do now. Because here he came. And he sat with me on the side of the bed, and I found myself kind of frozen. Frozen in the fear of what I was seeing. And he took my hand, and he picked me up. There's a window in my room. And he showed me that the pear tree that was right outside of my window was moving gently in the breeze. And right behind that was a full moon. And he tried to explain that she was just casting her light into my room. And that breeze was causing those shadows to move from the pear tree. And I found it interesting that this memory was meeting me, because I suddenly felt like it really applied in my life 50 years later. And Dad had shown me that as I watched the closet doors, that wall, how he would take me from the window to the doors, and how those shadows were moving. And he said, "See, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all an illusion." Inasmuch I've learned that many things that we remember from the earliest parts of our childhood are things that apply to us. Things that are important for us to learn about or to understand. That particular situation became iconic to my work, to my life, to today, in understanding that much of what we perceive as our enemy is not our enemy. And that sometimes something as simple as a gentle breeze, that air element, which is thought, can twist and turn one thing into another, unless we're really willing to find the light behind it that actually is the true source of these things. I was always grateful to my father in that he was a great teacher. And there might not have been too many people willing to sit and teach a life lesson at early hours in the morning just to bring peace to a 2-year-old. And it's brought peace to me the rest of my life. Because every time I see a challenge, every time I see something in the road, I'm asking questions. I'm looking for the pear tree. I'm looking for the breeze. And I'm looking for the moon. Trying to see what really is going on. Anku says we're stepping into a time of greater clarity now. The other thing that he had shown right about the time of the lunar eclipse It looked very much like a cave. The rock walls were just solid. And right in front of me I saw prison bars. And I had to ask, am I in the cell or am I out of the cell here? He said, oh no, you're out. But look. And I looked. Really couldn't see anybody in the cell specifically. I only saw a small window at the very back of the cell at the top of it. And it gave me the sense that this was all the more access to light that this place had. Small window. And I found him, I guess you could say, energetically turning me around and going the other way. He said, now look. And when I looked, there was this, call it a cave entrance into this place. And from a distance I could see the light, I could see the brightness outside of it. And when I got to the edge of it, I felt myself wanting to put my hand up over my eyes because it was so very bright. It was more of a reflex, not a refusal. But I think some of the enlightenment that some of you are experiencing right now, some of the memories, some of the exposure that you're feeling, is very much that light trying to shine into the darker crevices of who you are and the places that have held you captive over time, and that your access to that is much greater than it has been. If you're willing to step out into it, and yes, you can shield your eyes, you can protect yourself from it until you adjust. That's no problem, but we have to be willing to leave what's been comfortable. We have to be willing to step into a different view. What was the other thing? Let's see. All time is now. All time is now. Some of you maybe is something I've experienced heavily just recently. And it may be from the Ormus, it may be from other things, firing up the DNA. But it's genetic memory, it's ancestral, it's collective, it's a variety of layers. But really I'm realizing more and more as I get into the one mind and the one heart that much of that is all the same. We have a tendency to compartmentalize in order to make sense of things. But in the bigger realm of energetics, it's all the same. And that we're coming into kind of out of that fire aspect of that purification and into a gentler version that's more of a warming, or the ability to see by firelight, where we're able to take that sense of destruction and feel the growth coming out of it. It's very connected to the solar plexus, to the I am, and parts of us opening up and being able to remember more about who we are, whether that be as individuals, things that we've given away about ourselves, or perhaps have handed over our power, our innate power, the part of you, power is meant to empower other people. The part of you that would shine, the uniqueness of you. And that's something else I feel in that cave-like energy, is just allowing your own uniqueness to shine and be okay with that. The other thing that's happening, he's showing me the rain. And in that, he's showing me that water element, this heart space, as it's coming out of its fear, as it's coming out of its grief, as it's coming out of the lament, is the word he gives me, the lament of existence. The first thing he shows me is a sense of tiredness, and it feels kind of mixed with maybe what we would call random tears, random weather. It's interesting that he puts those things together, but it's almost a sense that nature feels what man is feeling right now. Nature is feeling, Mother Earth is feeling the birthing pains into what we are aspiring to become. And I feel she's very connected with us in that way, and understands more than we might think. Some of us are still falling into a vibration and realizing we are genuinely of the earth, said to be made of clay, which is water and earth. And that both of these energies are super important in our lives. And they offer the stability of the earth, but they also offer us the great gift of feeling and emotion that not all forms of consciousness might have. So it's okay to cry. You might be crying for yourself, you might be crying for the collective, you might be feeling what Mother Earth is feeling. But more importantly, honor that. Honor yourself. Honor your sense of sovereignty to how you feel, instead of pushing it into the back of everything in your life. The way we've always done as people. We put ourselves last, and we don't realize that sometimes if it's for us, it's also for others. There's a with this solar eclipse now, he's showing it's still in that fire energy, but it feels very different than what we're coming out of. It feels much more nurturing. And it feels much more teaching in the regard of looking at ideas that we have for ourselves, for our future, whatever plans, and being able to say, is this, and it can be something you're involved in currently, but it feels like it's very important that we ask why. Why am I inclined to this? Or why am I doing that? Because it feels very much like we've kind of got it backwards. Like he shows me think, feel, be, and then do. And in that, what you do should always be a natural part of who you are. And it should honor your feelings, as well as allowing your thoughts to have action. But most importantly, he said, if you involve either other in that spirit, in that process, it will ring more true to you in what your correct action might be, instead of just guessing, instead of just kind of happenstance experiences. And that by processing that thought and bringing it down into the heart and asking the core part of who you are, is this who I am? Is this my truth? Because that's where that fire resides. That's where that steel is its strongest. And as you bring it down, he's saying you feel it in your root. You feel it. Is this a part of my path? Not just about stability, not just about surface foundation or security, but to take it to a higher level and say, is this a part of my path? And if you pay attention, you know, he spoke of the 5 senses before and how our body is our friend, how nurturing what's given to us also enables our soulful growth. And in this, he's saying it will very much allow you to make a more complete decision if you're willing to feel all of those aspects in your body. But he said this is all about getting back to wholeness and getting back to your authentic self and recognizing how strong your divine spark really is. He's challenging you to look in the mirror long enough in the eye to find your divine spark, as the eyes are the windows to the soul and connected to that highest part of who you are. I feel a playful challenge in that he's saying, can you look at yourself in the eye that long? If not, it might be time to shine the flashlight in those crevices and kind of find why. Why do you feel that way if you can't? So there's a lot more to this, but I feel like we are almost into that phase of light where information, divine messages, greater truth is very close to reaching us. He's saying it's a really good time to let darkness be your friend, to allow your light to be defined by your shadow rather than running from your shadow. Try to see that light behind it. Try to find the source that's within you. So I think for now we'll stop there. Naturally, if any of you are interested in personal sessions, feel free to reach me by email. Ormus. We just made another batch and it's good stuff. So don't be afraid to ask about that. The rods are still available if anyone is interested still in getting those. I'm hoping to be back very soon, and if there's more on this, to present it then. Love yourself, love your brother, love your enemy. Focus on peace, focus on love, focus on joy, and all of the things that are required to take you to those points will happen naturally. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.